Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. To view our programs, please go to YouTube and type in capital letters RBRIMO. We're also seen on Flint, Michigan Comcast Cable Television, channel 17 every Wednesday, and at 8:30, and at 6 o'clock every Saturday. We're also seen on Detroit, Michigan Comcast Cable, channel 68 every Sunday at 9 p.m. I want to welcome our millions of viewers worldwide and my talented co-hosts, Miss Jackie Williams,
Ron,
Mr. Henry Hatter,
Hi, Ron.
and the diva of the show, Miss Denise Smith Allen.
Well, there's two divas.
Okay,
Hello.
two divas.
check
Okay.
it.
I just
Say
been checked.
yes,
I
say
just
divas.
been checked. And it's all good. Let's talk about crisis of confidence plagues law enforcement. I wonder why. From California to Maine and hundreds of other towns around the U.S. Why? If one is to check the internet or statistics from the FBI, it is well documented almost all riots in America and Canada were instigated by law enforcement. If anyone wants to check this out, just type riots in America. It will provide you with the chilling facts and information. All lives matter. Denise, what's your thoughts?
Well, absolutely, all lives matter. It's unfortunate we are in a state right now, and I'm just saying about the climate in this country, where police officers are sworn to protect and serve, but it appears that they're protecting and serving themselves, and at the expense of unarmed young black men. And to see footage, because now they've got cameras and they've got people with cell phones that are documenting these horrific events. And, when does it end? I think that we have, discussed the problem, but certainly, you cannot regulate or legislate a person's belief. And you've got some people that are on the police force that have issues, whether it's bias or psychological problems. And I think it's incumbent upon policing agencies to do a better job at looking at the people that they hire, and then also to evaluate them on a regular basis to make sure that they are not at a point where maybe they need to be pulled off of working in the streets and maybe work desk duty or even be discharged from the position because they can no longer function. But what's happened now, this is like daily, and a lot of times I think that the public becomes desensitized because it's happening so regularly. But I think it's incumbent upon us to stay vigilant, to talk about it. And there are various approaches, whether it is demonstrations, talking to the police agencies, having an independent review board to look at these matters, and to stay proactive and engaged with the idea that we don't want to see another young, unarmed person shot down like a dog.
Exactly. And also, too, to add with that, racism in America is a systemic problem. This is learned, okay, from home, friends, college, perhaps. But this is a learned, very negative thing. Jackie, what are your thoughts?
I really agree with Denise and you as well. The problem, it did not just start right now. It's being revealed. And I think this has been going on so long because there was no proof. And now that technology has stepped up and we're able to see, and if you even notice that, even when they have the cams, they're still doing what they do because they're so used to doing what they do. Mm-hmm. And we have to get those officers removed. And we, like she said, we have to make sure we have to march or speak to the police departments, because this is what has been going on for a very long time and not punished. Mm-hmm. So now we're convicting officers that are shooting and not asking questions and unfairly arresting. And, just like the girl Sandra Bland in, Texas, now he was an officer that had psychological problems and he should have never even been out doing duty.
Police work, right.
Yeah, so this is stuff that needs to be, they need to tidy up on these records because it's costing lives.
And this idiot cop in Chicago, shot that man 16 times in the back when he was running away. Where was the threat? Where was the threat? And they charge him with murder, and I hope there's no plea bargain. I hope his butt goes to jail, all right, for the rest of his life. Henry, what are your thoughts?
Well, did you see how Denise cleaned up your point that you made? She didn't refer to blacks. She says, we don't need another young man killed mercilessly.
I don't think I used the word black either.
Sure. Yeah, afterwards you did. Yeah, you did. That's what I'm referring to. That's okay. And this is what we're talking about. That's what
Blacks, they're not just only killing the black people, but women, Hispanics,
Right.
okay, homeless people.
Yeah, we have an obligation to protect all people. And and I, in a way, and I know that you guys love this, appreciate the phrase, but Black Lives Matter. To me, if we can ideally say it, all lives matter. It should be included. All lives matter. Yeah. So, and there are many white people who object to the use of Black Lives Matter as if their lives don't matter, but they do. Everybody's, and we got to pull all of these people under the same umbrella to give them the rights and protections that our Constitution required that they have. Because without them getting it, we won't get it either.
But do you know why they said Black Lives Matter? Because those are the victims.
I know.
Majority of them are the victims. Of course, all lives matter, but right now, the majority of the victims are minorities, whether it be,
You're right.
it's everybody but.
And I'm not going to win this argument. As
No,
long as
you're
you
not.
continue talking.
But you have to understand the history behind it, and that's
And I think people
why.
do. I think that I'm just giving you little eavesdroppings and overheard messages and stuff like that.
Of course.
And I need to bring that to the forefront.
But they don't want to be plagued. But the truth of the matter is, the information speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And that's why people in America have lost a tremendous amount of respect for law enforcement officers, whether they're the cops on the street, the ones who work at the airports or customs, border patrol. So, and I can understand the anger.
Historically, it goes back to Emmett Till.
Yes.
It goes back to Emmett Till. Black Lives Matter. Okay, they went through a mock of a jury trial. Okay, and within a few minutes, these guys walk. Okay, because again, it's
That was
historic.
then.
Yeah, historically. So but if you have
Yeah.
to bring it up to date, and this is where this comes from. Okay, so we understand truly all lives do matter.
Right.
We get that, but we have to zone in or focus in on what's going on. Statistically, here are all the numbers of all these young people who have been gunned down unarmed.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, may I get on with my criticism?
Well,
That was just the...
Okay. Please criticize so we can counter it.
Right. Go ahead, Henry.
Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to say, not all policemen are bad policemen.
No, absolutely
Okay,
not.
Right.
Probably 80 to 90% of people are good policemen.
But how do you know which
Well,
ones
I don't.
are?
I don't
Let
have the
him finish.
information. Hang on. But I think many policemen look at their jobs as being important and noble. And if they don't, they should. And if they don't, they should leave the police department right now. They should resign today. They don't think their job is noble and a good job. And a job that other people should look up to, like heroes. But the problem that we're going to have, that we have now, we'll continue to have as long as the policy of police departments to act as if they are an invading army. Take no prisoners. When you're in pursuit of the enemy or in pursuit of the victim or pursuit of whoever you're pursuing, kill. Policemen also have glorified that position to people who have guns in their homes. They say, okay, if you have a home invasion, and the guy is not in the house, entice him into the house and kill. You've heard that, haven't you?
I
Have you heard it?
I've heard that.
You've heard it. All of you have heard that. Okay. Now, so people who have the propensity to kill, they're authorized to kill. Okay? And I think we have to change the police mentality from the top. You can still go out and beat a guy up at the club. You can still cuff and chain him. You can do all of those things that you need to do to restrain a prisoner. But the policy of killing someone, even if they're walking away from you, just really taints the police department.
Exactly.
It taints it really bad.
Exactly.
It
And
not
also-
only taints it in the eyes of blacks, but it taints them in the eyes of whites.
And also, they're killing people while they're in jail.
In custody.
Yeah.
Okay, handcuffs.
So what you have is the use of deadly force being the first thing that they default to, and that shouldn't be, because there are ways: stun guns, restraint. There's other things that
And
you
you can
mentioned.
see the army.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
the
see
military.
there is a way to handle this, but it's like, and and I look at the police, and as you said, the majority of the police officers are good, decent people who are there to do a job. They got into it because they felt it was an honorable thing to serve. But I think of them, and I look at them and liken them to the army, or the officers, or the people who came back from the war in Vietnam. If you think about how they were disparaged, they went over there thinking that they were doing an honorable thing. But when they came back, they were not appreciated. So a lot of them were angry, and a lot of them acted out. And we have scores of them now who are homeless and going through a whole lot of other things because of how they were treated. World War II veterans weren't treated that way, and other veterans were not treated that way. But that group of people were disparaged. So now you have these small percentage of officers who have gotten the headlines, have done all these horrific things. Think about that officer who ended up killing himself because he was doing some bad things, but they thought that he had been murdered because he talked about
Yes.
2 people, 3 people who, and then they had a wonderful homegoing celebration because all the officers came, and they,
That's right.
and then to find out that this guy had done what he had done. So don't you think the good officers, don't they feel badly? Don't they feel badly? Sure they do. And they're looking at each other. But now it's about, if you know you got somebody in your group that's acting up, first of all, you go to them and you tell them to straighten up. And if they don't straighten up, then you go to your superior, because you don't want that individual to taint the whole group.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. And they've had this code, this blue code of silence. Can't do it no more, because it does them all a disservice.
That's a gang mentality.
And see, the bad
Yeah.
cops need to be exposed, but what's
Of
happening is the good cops are being ostracized.
Right.
Okay, and they have to forget about tell the truth. Tell the truth, because the good cop, your life might hang in the balance if you don't tell. I don't care what you call it, snitching or whatever. Do it. Maintain your integrity.
To change the environment, you have to do it, because I was watching some footage on a guy that was put in custody. He didn't do anything wrong. He was at a hotel. He didn't do anything wrong. He was at a hotel. They arrested him. They had him in custody. They had him in handcuffs. They stunned him, I think it was 18 times. And he was in custody. And he died. I mean, and everybody in the car was abusing him. And it was just like, so they all were in it together.
Yeah.
So at one
the
point,
gang mentality.
yeah, you have to get in there and say, okay, I'm not participating in this. And if you guys don't straighten up, I'm going to have to tell on you guys.
Didn't that prosecutor indict all 6 of them?
Sure did.
Good. Hope they all go to prison.
And
See how
continuing
tough you are in
my
there.
criticism. Yeah.
Okay, yes, your criticism.
Now, you're exactly right. Now, about the gang mentality and how that needs to change in this country. It needs to change from ground up and top down. We need to look at people as culpable. We need to look at them as capable of making mistakes. We need to look at people that are angry for some reason or another. and these circumstances. And everybody that has a gun and everybody who is trying to escape the police does not want to kill the policeman. They want to avoid the policeman as they can. But the policeman, once he tags onto you, he's like a guided missile. His object is to destroy. And that's the kind of mentality we want to change. Now, as a symbol of entertainment here, if you ever go back and look at some of the movies, some of the ideal characters that people don't like, consider John Wayne, for example. Never shot a man in the back. Never shot a man escaping. But he would stand up to them. He said, this is what I believe. This is my belief statement. And I don't want anybody stepping over the line on that. And so on and so forth. But if you take other people like Clint Eastwood, they may shoot you down not only once, but keep shooting as you're falling down. But the Clint Eastwood would not necessarily do, but you can see some of the cops that do. We have cops out that mirror these people and who admire them. So a new culture in 20 years has been established for how you deal with criminals. Of course, the criminal element has become tough too. You know, they will shoot and they will kill. But to have that kind of force within a corporate force, protecting a civilian community is not necessary. There are ways that you can, and once you have a person in custody, the whole law, the state, the whole United States is after this guy, because in the indictment it says John Doe versus the state of Michigan, the United States, and all of those people. This guy's isolated. He's only minutia, and we should deal with it accordingly. Just once we give the authority to the state, and they need to know how to do it with justice and dignity.
You know, I've advocated a number of times, even in some of my writings, is that all law enforcement should be psych evaluated every year. That might cut down on some of that lawlessness. And
to finally characterize people in law enforcement that do these kind of abuses to civilians, I criticize them as bullies with a gun. And that's the article I wrote for the Flint Journal when certain things happened. But the Flint Journal was a little bit afraid to publish it, so I still have it in my document, and one of these days I may do it.
Bring it on the show, Mr. Hatter. We're not afraid to expose anybody on this show.
I'll let you read it. Okay.
Because if you're wrong, you're wrong.
I've criticized the police enough because I have a lot of policemen that are my friends, but I do not characterize them as a rogue cop. A rogue cop is bad.
No, I don't think the vast majority are, but right now we are being plagued with the reports of so many hits. I mean, you know, you have like this person didn't have a gun, they didn't even move, or just like the one I think was in Florida, it was the wrong person. He just happened to run out of gas and he ended up dead. He ran out of gas. We should not be afraid to run out of gas and see an officer and then that ends our life. That's what we're not trying to do. So yes, it takes us when we get in front of officers that are there for the cause and are noble. It just makes us uncomfortable. I mean, to the point where we have to school our children of how to be arrested properly. Or if you get stopped, what are you supposed to do? Make sure you're not moving around. Make sure you're not doing anything, you know, and things like that. That wouldn't come into play if there was not so many cases.
Think of this young man who shot the young man, 17-year-old, 16 times. Think of what his kids are likely to think of him when they see him pointing a gun, shooting a man 17 times, and putting all those holes in him.
It all depends on how those children
How
are raised.
Well, that's right.
Nevertheless, children also have compassion. You can never tell. They could be, you're right, and I can't debate that. But still, what about his mother? What about his dad? Well, they could have been the same kind of people, right?
Well, he's going to go home and lie.
stop and think about the people. No, that was not. You can't be justified in doing that.
No.
No, you can't.
And-
I mean,
and-
no, you
Using up
can't.
the state's resources for
Right.
nothing. The guy was killed the first shot you put in him.
And
Exactly.
the thing that is so disturbing about all of that is the fact that it took them so long, and
Over a
they had
year.
to get a court order for them to release the tape. They did not want to do it, so there was a complicity in the silence. And see, that's the
system.
thing that makes people angry.
Got to change
Okay,
that system.
you got to change the system. There's no way around it. And the body
Mm-hmm.
cams, they're going to either be a lot of police officers suddenly retiring,
Right.
okay, or being
Being
put on
fired.
desk duty or
Right.
getting fired, because that's going to open it up.
Denise, how would you like to be a person? Now, you have lots of friends and you're very well known, and so are all three of you. How would you like to be in that guy's position? And try to explain that to your sons.
There's no explanation.
You couldn't.
no
You
explanation.
couldn't.
There's no explanation.
How would you like to explain it to
He's
your grandson?
he's explaining, but he's lying to them. I
There's no
guarantee you.
But it's okay. But the
The
kids
whole
see.
it's been going on a whole year, so he's been told all kinds of lies,
But-
and also there's a push to for that state's attorney, okay, for her resignation.
Yeah, but here the kids take a look at the evidence. Seeing is believing.
But they didn't have the evidence for a whole year.
But the kids are still alive. They
His
can
children,
see what
yes.
we see.
Yeah, they can see
Yeah.
it, and that certainly, as this thing plays out, and we hope justice is served, and the man gets a lot of time for what he did.
There's
Okay?
no honor greater than the honor from your children.
In Henry's world.
right.
In Henry's world. And I mean, and that is a perfect world. We should all feel that same way.
Right.
But you don't know what he was teaching his kids.
Because if you're the father, just
You
like
don't know
an
what he was
abused
teaching.
child, it doesn't matter how many times you hit that abused child, they still love their parents.
But the public and the rest of the world weigh in on this argument.
But what
So
it
his
doesn't matter, but it
version
matters
versus
what their parents are telling
The,
them.
yeah, but their version versus what humanity tells you is something different.
Yeah.
Kids
But that's
don't
how you
to
have cults,
Yeah.
Henry, is because they believe who is in front of them. And no matter how the world says they're different, it doesn't matter. They believe who is teaching them. Which
Well,
is
my
their
kids
parents.
don't believe what I tell them. They believe what other people say. That ain't right.
Okay, well, that's another discussion. That's a whole nother
And
discussion.
we'll call a therapist for that one, Henry.
We'll call a therapist.
Just like, Denise was saying, on top of the wrongful shootings that we're doing, for you to hide the material afterwards, because even in the Sandra Bland, and I keep referring to that because that just was really horrible, they released a portion, and if you could pay attention to the video, you could see where it was cut. It was just like all of a sudden he was talking and then he shut up all of a sudden and then he was talking again. So you could see where they even manipulated the tape. So it goes past you using your gun wrong. It goes past you shooting somebody that was innocent. It goes past that. So the cover up is deep.
And then they also the cops rushed the stores that had cameras and erased the videos.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean that's ridiculous.
That's the
ridiculous.
systematic
And then
way.
a threat to arrest a person that was near Sandra when she's being arrested. They told her to give them their camera.
And you don't have to give up that camera. I mean, your cell
Call
phone.
Ron and he'll support you.
Okay, or
Send you to jail.
camera. Okay, refuse to do it. Refuse to do it. One thing that folks out there, you should do this. If you're in a car, I've said this before in this show. You're being stopped by a cop, hit 911. Get that 911 operator on there. So when you roll that window down and that officer asks you for your license and this and the registration, they're recording this, and the cops can't come in there and erase that audio. So remember that. Remember that. The last 3 minutes we got, Henry?
Well, I think that this was a great discussion. I think that this should change attitudes toward people. This show, the In My Opinion show, and its hosts and guests are not against policemen.
No,
we're
we're
not
not.
against society. We're not against anybody based on their religions, color, or the amount of money that they have, or where they live. But we're looking at issues that pertain to specific people and specific situations that is a violation of Constitution. And I believe, and all people would agree that this discussion had a lot to do with constitutional law and the rights of individuals under the Constitution, and dignity and justice. And that's what we try to focus on. We don't focus on any particular point to support one segment of the population over the other. That is
Right.
not our intent.
If I could just interject one last thought too, there are solutions, and I think we did touch on those solutions as far as the psychological evaluations. But I also think that community policing is a very effective tool, because if you have the same officers in the same area over time, people will begin to have some type of trust if the officer is a decent officer. Mm-hmm. And is doing his job or her job. And also, the officer will develop a rapport, whereas if there is things happening in the community, people will be open to share some things, particularly if it's going to be a benefit to curtail some illegal activity. So we have to be able to look at what was working, and community policing was very effective.
Exactly. And also, too, with the 1 minute we have left, is that all law enforcement should wear body cameras. Mm-hmm. And if they take them off or turn them off, they should be fired immediately, because they're up to no good, obviously. Jackie?
I just think that, all this information was very enlightening, and I'm so glad that we're doing something to move forward from just having the stories with no results. So I'm glad that we have the body cams, and I'm glad that the video cameras are on the phones, and I'm glad that the accountability has stepped up, and I'm glad law enforcement is starting to be disciplined for inappropriate acts.
And folks, you keep taking those pictures. The hell with what the police tell you. At this time, we must bring the In My Opinion show to a close. This is Ronald B. Robinson and friends saying, until next time, stay focused.